Hello, this is Scott Williams. Welcome to Fact, Faith, and Feeling. We try to figure out what's part of fact, what requires faith, and what requires feeling. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fact, Faith, and Feeling. We try to figure out what are the facts, what are things that we have to put our faith into, and what are things that are just based on emotion or feeling. In this new series, we're going to present a positive case for creationism. So we're going to present a number of arguments for creationism. In this first episode, we're going to talk about fine-tuning. And how does this relate to creationism? Well, the fine-tuning argument goes like this. The fine-tuning of the universe to support life is either due to law, some sort of physical necessity, chance, or design. It is not due to law, physical necessity, or chance. Therefore, the fine-tuning is due to design. In mechanical engineering, engineers begin the design process by specifying as clearly as possible the needs statement for their project. Then you develop a design solution that accomplishes the need or needs specified for your project. In the same way, one needs to determine the minimal requirements for a universe capable of sustaining life as we know it. We can develop a need statement and see how these needs or design requirements are met in our universe. We are essentially constructing the blueprint backwards in reverse engineering. We can then determine if there are many ways to meet these minimal requirements for a universe capable of sustaining life, or are the conditions so connected and unique that it would require a miracle, in quotation marks, in its own right. In other words, can natural processes bring this about, or does it require something beyond natural processes? These minimal requirements were determined by whoever or whatever designed the universe. They do not have to be this way by physical laws. These minimal requirements were independent of and given long before cosmologists discovered the initial conditions of the universe. These minimal requirements are described by a few simple, elegant mathematical equations. Slight changes to any of the physical constants or to the ratios between the constants will result in a universe inhospitable to life. So what is the fine-tuning? Let's listen to Lee Strobel. He's the author of the book Case for a Creator.
This deals with what's called the fine-tuning of the universe. And what has happened over the last 50 or 60 years, there have been a series of scientific discoveries that tell us that the laws and the constants of physics, in other words, the numbers that govern the operation of the universe, conspire in an absolutely unexpected way so that life can exist in the universe. In other words, life is balanced on a razor's edge. The universe is finely tuned so that life can exist. It's like this. If you go out at night, and I know here in Georgia on a clear night, when you look up in the sky and you see all the stars, how pretty it is. Well, what if you went out one night and you looked up in the sky and the stars weren't there? Instead, you saw 50 giant dials in the sky. Huge dials. 50 of them. And each one of these dials has different ways it can be calibrated, numbers to calibrate it. And those numbers represent millions and billions and trillions of trillions of trillions of possible settings for each one of these 50 dials. And as you look in the sky, what you notice is, of all of these trillions of settings that are possible for each one of those dials, every single dial is exactly calibrated to the exact right position so that life can exist in the universe. That is a picture of what modern physics tells us about the fine-tuning of the universe. It defies the explanation that, oh, this is just by mere chance. Let me give you one example. The force of gravity. We all know what gravity is. Gravity is set at a specific force level. Now imagine we had a dial, but it's one of those old linear dials, like those old radio dials, like a ruler. So this dial, this ruler, goes all the way across the known universe. So this ruler or dial is 15 billion light years wide. And it's broken down into 1-inch increments. That range represents the range at which gravity could have been set at anywhere along that range. And yet, gravity is set at the exact right place so that life can exist. How precise is it? Get this. If we were to change the setting for the law of gravity by 1 inch compared to the 15 billion light years width of the universe, by 1 inch, life is impossible anywhere in the universe.
What is some more fine-tuning? Well, you need to have order in the universe. That's always been a puzzling question. How do we get order from disorder? You need order for a stable environment that is needed for the development of life. We seem to have an orderly, maybe intelligent universe on many levels, but with some disorder built in, so you can allow for change to occur. For order, we need these various things. We need Newtonian mechanics operating in a three-dimensional universe. We need multiple stable elements of the periodic table. We need an atomic structure to be constrained by the laws of quantum physics. We need chemical reactions that use Boltzmann's equation for the second law of thermodynamics. We need a stable energy source like the sun. All these just to get order. We also need the laws of electromagnetic radiation that Maxwell described. We need chemical stability and elemental diversity to build complex molecules. We need to process energy. We need to store information. We need a replicating system. We need predictability in chemical reactions. They react the same way every time. A universe of just hydrogen and helium, the most simple universe we can conceive of, will not work. It needs to be more than that, more complex than that, just to get the order we need to live. We also need something called a universal connector, a chemical property that permits things to react readily with almost all other elements. These are forming bonds that are stable, but not so stable that you can break them later. Carbon is the only element in our periodic chart that can do all of this. We need a universal solvent. Chemical reactions are too slow in the solid state. But life cannot be sustained as a gas. A liquid or a compound that readily dissolves both the reaction and the reactants. A liquid with the properties of water. Water seems to be the only thing we know that can do all of this. But there's a problem with water. The temperature of water has to be within certain range, usually between 0 degrees Celsius and 100 degrees Celsius. But complex organisms require an even more narrow temperature range. They need about 5 to 50 degrees Celsius. How does our planet remain within such a narrow temperature range when almost every other section of the universe is either much colder or much hotter than planet Earth and inhospitable to life? How did this happen? What about some of the universal constants? These all have to be within a narrow range and completely correct. The speed of light, Planck's constant, Boltzmann's constant, the unit charge, the rest mass proton, the rest mass of neutron, the rest mass of electron, and the gravity force constant. If gravity was too strong or too weak, it wouldn't allow for the orbits of the planets. Things would just fly off the surface of the Earth. Hugh Ross, he's kind of a famous scientist and an apologist for creation, but he's not a young Earth creationist. He says this: "My point is that the universe is at least 10 billion orders of magnitude too small or too young for life to have assembled itself by natural processes. Such calculations have been made by researchers, both theists and non-theists, in a variety of disciplines." To summarize, this is the summarization for the case for a creator. One needs to determine the minimal requirements for a universe capable of sustaining life as we know it. Hugh Ross, from Reasons to Believe, he's calculated that there's 850 of them. So imagine that, 850 different variables, all within a very narrow range, all working together to make our life on Earth possible. So I don't know the exact figure, maybe there's 780 or 888, but that's kind of irrelevant. There's a lot. And so all of these are working together. And remember, these minimal requirements were independent of and given long before cosmologists discovered the initial conditions of the universe. We knew what we needed to survive long before we realized that they were there from the beginning. Remember, we need a strong force. The force that binds nucleons, protons and neutrons, that force has to be correct. The conversion of beryllium to carbon and carbon to oxygen, this cycle has to be correct. We have to have order. We have to have an orderly universe, but with just enough disorder for change to occur. We need a universal connector. Carbon seems to be the only element that can do this. We need a universal solvent. Can't be in solid form because reactions are too slow. Can't be a gas because we'd have no stable life. So it has to be a liquid with the properties of water. Has to maintain the correct temperature between 0 and 100 degrees Celsius. We need the universal constants, the speed of light, Planck's constant, Boltzmann's constant, the unit charge, the rest mass proton, the rest mass of neutron, the rest mass of electron, and the gravity force constant. All of these need to be finely tuned. And remember, if any of these minimal requirements are not met, we don't have a subpar universe. We don't have a universe that works, but not as well. We have a universe incapable of sustaining life. So there's a lot of evidence, but this is still short of proof. We haven't proven there's a creator. I like this phrase, well, maybe. This is that first step that goes us from absolutely can't be a creator, I don't believe it, it's absolutely not possible, to, well, maybe. Remember, the fine-tuning argument goes like this. The fine-tuning of the universe to support life is either due to law, a physical necessity, has to be this way. It's due to chance, or it's due to design. So is there a universal law that states the universe has to be this way? No. Well, we know now that it's not due to law. Other combinations were possible. So from this evidence, I think you can reasonably arrive at deism. The idea that something created the universe, maybe is involved, maybe isn't, but there's sufficient evidence to at least lead you to say, well, maybe. Sufficient grounds for a creator, or at least the possibility of one. But you're not quite to theism. God is sovereign and currently involved. This whole channel is about fact, faith, and feeling. So what we've learned from all that is, well, the fact is there are minimum requirements for a functioning universe. These are all finely tuned within very limiting parameters. If any of these minimal requirements are not met, we don't have a subpar universe. We have one incapable of sustaining life or even matter, energy, etc. How did we get this? What's the why question? This is the idea of faith. Well, evolution tends towards the adaptation of life to its environment. Did we evolve into our situation? Or was our situation carefully planned for us? In this initial lesson, we learned that either one of those would require faith. Maybe we evolved into it. We just found ourselves in this situation and we evolved. Maybe it was made for us. Can't tell 100% from the evidence. All we know is both of them are, well, maybe. What about this last thing, feeling? Well, when you start angrily saying that the opposite could not happen, well, that's a feeling. If you're just looking at this fine-tuning argument, so far, either one could happen. So if you say evolution is stupid, all evolutionists are stupid, those are all feelings. That has nothing to do with fact. The facts are that it's a very complicated universe. So far, we have both are a matter of faith. So is there evidence that a being could have created the world? Is there evidence that we are important in this creation? Finely tuned for life. Does it point to a creator or does it point to natural processes? And that's the whole point of this video today. Let's move from believing in a creator is stupid to maybe it's possible. There's an awful lot of fine tuning that makes you scratch your head and say, well, maybe. Let's be open. So I thank you for listening. I thank you for your attention. We're not trying to preach here. We're not even trying to talk you into anything. The point of this broadcast is, well, maybe. Get you to that point that there's a positive case for a creator. It is possible. Have a great day, and I hope you have a wonderful tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye. Remember, this series is all about listening with respect. That's what this channel is all about. I'm listening to what everyone has to say. Will you listen with me? So this is a YouTube channel, so I would ask that you like this video if you liked it, and subscribe to this channel. By subscribing, it gives me excitement to continue, and it helps my numbers to grow. Let's listen together. Have a great day. See you next time. Bye-bye.